Hello, welcome to SennSays. Why am I in a car? This is a great question. You might recognize Riding in Cars with Researchers, Dr. Jeffrey Kingsley, with me today, and I'm going to be interviewing him about how to explain biotech to the public in a way they can understand it, and this is in honor of Global Biotech Week. So, you ready to go for a ride, Dr. Kingsley?
Ready to go for a ride.
Let's do it. All right, well, I think the first thing we should do is, why don't you tell us what biotech is?
Biotech is a generic word that talks about types of medicine. In broad categories, you've got pharmaceuticals, biotech, and medical devices. Pharmaceuticals are chemicals that you can create in a chemistry lab. Aspirin is a pharmaceutical. You can create it in a beaker. I'm making that up. You can create it in a beaker. Medical devices, you understand what that is. It's a device, like a pacemaker, for example, or a joint replacement. Biotechnology is drugs that we create from other biologic things. And so vaccines are a great example. Historically, vaccines were grown in eggs, right? So you're developing this drug, but the drug requires something alive to be able to create it. The monoclonal antibodies are all biotechnology. So biotech is the class of medicines that we create from other biological material.
I would think that something about the word biological, even though I think of it as completely natural, somehow it makes people nervous. So how do you start to explain this to patients?
Yeah, biotech sounds scary for some reason or another, and the way we name these drugs makes them insanely scarier. No one can even pronounce the names of most biotech drugs. The generic names of monoclonal antibodies are insane. So they do sound scary. One of the things that I do is I make it relatable for the patient. So for example, being able to say to the patient, the vaccines that you and I both got when we were little kids, those are all actually biotechnology. Those vaccines were the traditional vaccine technology where those viruses were inactivated and then were grown, and we got them as a vaccine, and therefore we became immune to polio. And so I helped the patient understand that actually they got biotech drugs when they were little boys and girls. Many times I'll use rheumatoid arthritis as an example, and I'll say to a patient, do you know anybody who has rheumatoid arthritis? There's a drug called Humira that's been around for decades, and it was a monoclonal antibody. It's a biotech drug that has been approved for decades and has been game-changing for patients with rheumatoid arthritis. And today, we're using biotechnology for psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, eczema, asthma, COPD, rheumatoid arthritis, on it goes. And so I try and get patients to realize that even if they might not be familiar with biotech, it's been around them for a very long time and they just didn't know.
That's really great, which has me coming to, maybe it's more of a philosophical question, but why do you think it is that these drugs sound scarier to people than if you just said, oh, here's a pill for cholesterol or whatever? When to me they shouldn't be scarier.
I don't think the media has cared about differentiating. And so it's easier just simply to talk about pharma. And if you're going to talk about pharma, you're going to talk about pharmaceuticals. But actually, they've been talking about biologics, but calling them pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
And so the media has taken the shortcuts and talked about everything as pharmaceuticals. But when we're talking to patients and talking to the patient about this being a biologic, it becomes very new to the patient. They've never heard that before. Like, what's a biologic and why, is this scary? Is this something brand new? And no, actually, it's been around for half a century.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything else you think people should know about biotech while we're talking?
The neat thing about a lot of the biologics, monoclonal antibodies are a great example. The new messenger RNA vaccine technology is a great example. When we're creating a pharmaceutical, we're literally making something that your body has never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
A legitimate foreign substance. When we're making a monoclonal antibody, that's a biologic. But monoclonal antibodies are antibodies. Our bodies were made to make them.
Right.
They're in us right now.
Right.
like our bodies are filled with antibodies.
Yes.
We have antibodies to smallpox. We've got antibodies to polio. We've got antibodies to the common cold that we got last week or last month or 6 months ago. We are literally filled with antibodies. And so it's actually a technology that works better with the body because it's not all that foreign to the body. It's more in alignment with what our bodies were made to do. The mRNA technology that we're using for vaccines now, we're literally just giving a patient a snippet of genetic material to say, hey, if you make this, you're going to make antibodies so that if you ever encounter this virus, you won't get infected, or you'll get infected, but you won't be infected very badly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, from that standpoint, biologics, frankly, should be less scary than pharmaceuticals.
So this pertains to other things as well, right? It's a small stressor on your body, so your body gets stronger.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as exercise or anything else. You have a little bit of a stress, and your body accomplishes things better.
Absolutely true. And the other really cool thing about biologics is that, you know, there was a phrase going around, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. The old paradigm used to be small compounds for large populations. Aspirin is a small compound. If you look at its chemical structure, its molecular weight, it's a very small compound. For large populations, everyone should take 81 milligrams of aspirin a day, right? Small compound, large population. The new paradigm is large compounds for small populations. Proteins, biologics, are largely large compounds. They're much heavier. They're bigger structures. The interesting thing about biologics is that we can nuance them to very small populations. We're getting into that era of genetic medicine where we're creating these compounds, and this is going to work very well in you, but maybe not me. And so we can create these very tailored compounds to somebody's very specific genetic profile. And so we're going to end up in an age where biologics become the norm. When I started doing research, most of our research was pharmaceutical by far. And then it became 50-50, and today most of our research is biologic. Pharmaceutical is the smaller amount of research that we do. I think that trend is going to continue because with biologics we're able to be so much more precise about what we're treating and who we're treating.
Fantastic. Well, I'm suddenly very excited about Global Biotech Week. How about you?
I love Global Biotech Week.
It should be all year round, right? I agree. All right. Well, thank you all for riding in cars with researchers and marketers. Bye.